Assalamu alaikum. My computer's acting a little slow, but it's coming up right now. Bismillah. Can everyone see the screen? Okay, I think the screen is fine there. Please do let me know if you can hear me and everything is clear on your end. Let me bring a shamila to this screen. There we go. And we're gonna go ahead and pull up Tahdhib al-Tahdhib, and then we'll begin, inshallah. Oh, there we go. Mumtaz. And let's minimize this for a moment. طيب, let's go ahead and begin, inshallah ta'ala. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين وبعد. So, as I said, we're going to start today by going over or finalizing some of what we started in our last session. And we were focusing on the hadith, من باع عبدا وله مال فماله للبائع إلا أن يشترطه المبتاع. تمام? So we discovered some things along the way. We discovered that Yahya narrates it from Malik, Al-Imam Malik, from Nafi', who is Mawla ibn Umar, from Ibn Umar, from Umar ibn al-Khattab, as if it's the statement of Umar ibn al-Khattab, and it's limited to that mas'ala. But as we researched some more, we saw that Abdullah ibn Umar also narrates it directly from the Prophet ﷺ, along with an addition of وَمَنْ بَاعَ نَخْلًا مُؤَبَّرًا فَالثَّمْرَةُ لِلْبَائِعِ إِلَّا أَنْ يَشْتَرِطِ الْمُبْتَاعُ. Kalam Jameel. And we spoke about these different chains. We had a marfu', and Bukhari considered the most authentic out of all the chains, Jameel, and that's Az-Zuhri from Salim, from Ibn Umar, from the Prophet ﷺ. We have Nafi' from Ibn Umar, from the Prophet ﷺ. And then there's variations of that. So you have Ikrimah from Nafi' from Ibn Umar, from the Prophet ﷺ. And then you have Ubaidillah from Nafi' from Ibn Umar, from Umar. And then Malik from Nafi' from Ibn Umar, from Umar. Now, in our last class, we covered Az-Zuhri. Who is Az-Zuhri? Muhammad ibn Muslim ibn Ubaidillah, or Ibn Musallam, or Ibn Musallim. There's different variations to how to read that. That's another science in Ilm al-Rijal. We'll speak about that later, inshallah ta'ala, once we go over the introduction of Taqrib al-Tahdhib by Al-Hafiz ibn Hajar. He's a great imam, very well known, from the 4th tabaqah. Jameel. He died, he said year 25. He means 125. Tamam. Because as soon as he says tabaqa, then I know exactly what he's referring to. The ain means jama'ah, that we'll find next to the names, and these are the symbols for al-kutub al-sitta. Jameel. Today we're going to tackle two people, Salim ibn Abdullah ibn Umar and Nafi' Mawla ibn Umar. Okay, so we'll pull up a shamila. We have Tahdhib al-Tahdhib here. Minimize that. And we're going to go to Salim ibn Abdullah ibn Umar. So what are we going to do? We're going to go to the letter Sin, Salim. So he should be in the beginning of Sin. So here's the beginning of Sin, Sin al-Muhmala. Sin al-Muhmala means does not have any dots over it. Sin al-Mu'jama, that means it has dots over it, means it's the Sheen. Okay, he starts with Sabiq, Salim ibn Abi Umayyah Tamimi Abu Nadar al-Madani Mawla Umar ibn Abdullah al-Taymi. Okay, that's not our narrator. Let's keep on going. Salim ibn Abi al-Ja'd Rafi' al-Ashja'i. That's not our narrator. Salim ibn Abi Hafsa al-Ajli. That's not our narrator. Salim ibn Kharbuz هو ابن سرج وهو ابن سرج يعني هذا اسمه, that's his name. Okay, let's keep on going. Salim ibn Razin, no. Salim ibn Shawwal, Salim right here we have him. Salim ibn Abdullah ibn Umar ibn al-Khattab al-Adawi Abu Umar, that was his kunya. He's also known as Abu Abdullah al-Madani al-Faqih. Now that we have him here, let's quickly, before we continue reading, open up Taqrib al-Tahdhib. All right, and let's go to Salim ibn Abdullah. Now, here we go, because we want to go ahead and copy and paste all of that information over to our file, bi'idhnillah. So here we go. Let's take this, because if we can have this up on the screen, right, and actually see the wording of Al-Hafidh ibn Hajar and break it down, it's a lot better. Here, let's put a line right here. Okay, let's separate this. All right, now we can break this down. He's Salim. Actually, we're going to do that. He's what? He's Madani. What was Zuhri? Zuhri was Madani. Salim was Madani. That's good. Why didn't it shade it? There we go. Okay, maybe blue is not the best, but the idea that I'm trying to alert you to is that they're both residents of the same city. Okay, and that's very important, because if you have one narrator is from Yemen and the other narrator is from Damascus, that's a red flag. Okay, unless we have traveling documentation of one of them going to where the other one is, or meet, they both met in Mecca or Medina, that's a red flag. How would they normally meet each other? How would they communicate with one another? That's a problem. Okay. أحد الفقهاء السبعة. This is great, because this makes him what? It makes him an imam, right? All right, that makes him an imam. What about here? Was الزهري an imam? Yes. الفقيه الحافظ المتفق على جلالته. ممتاز. So they're both great what? Imams. Look, subhanallah, it says that he was ثبت عابد فاضلا كان يشبه بأبيه في الهدي والسمت. He was almost like his dad in the way that he carried himself, the way that he behaved, etc. Okay, ممتاز. من كبار الثالثة. Okay, من كبار الثالثة, that means he's from the الطبقة الثالثة. So in other words, من كبار, we could actually write this for our own notation. الطبقة الثالثة. Okay, well, what was الزهري? He's from the kibar of what? الطبقة الرابعة. This is perfect. Jamil, why is it perfect? Because this means that it's the immediate same generation right after. Tamam? So this tells us that there's not that much of a time difference between them. So we like this. He says, مات في آخر سنة ست على الصحيح. That means what? year 106 Hijri. Okay, and when did Az-Zuhri die? He died 125, and some said it was either before that for a year, 124, or 2 years, 123. So see how close that is? That's perfect. Okay, that's perfect, because usually when a sheikh dies, the student will live on for a decade, two, maybe even more. Kalam Jamil. So that's something that we do want to see. Tamam. He also said Ain. What do we say about Ain? This means Jama'ah. This means Bukhari, Muslim, Abu Dawood, Tirmidhi, Nasa'i, and Ibn Majah. Tamam. So his ahadith, Salim's ahadith, will be found in all 6 books. Also, that'll be the case for Az-Zuhri. This means that they're well-rounded. Kalam Jamil. Na'am. Tamam. طيب. That's Salim. But now let's read up on some of the details. Bismillah. Let's bring this down and let's open Tahdhib al-Tahdhib. Unless I actually already had it open. There you go. So he says, روى عن أبيه, his father, Abdullah ibn Umar. And that's what we need him for here, really. We don't need the rest. But let's see a little bit more about him. He narrated from Abi Hurairah, Abi Rafi', Abi Ayyub. Who else? Zayd ibn al-Khattab, Abi Lubaba, ala khilafin fi. Okay, well, we don't need that. وعنه, this is where we need. This is our important spot. Ibnahu Abu Bakr. His son narrates from him. Abu Bakr ibn Muhammad ibn Amr ibn Hazm. Az-Zuhri. That's what we want. Mumtaz jiddan 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 jiddan. We don't need to read the rest right now, because that's the point that we're trying to get to, right? All right, now let's get into the Jarh and Ta'dil part. So starting from right here, he says, قال ابن المسيب كان عبد الله أشبه ولد عمر به وكان سالم أشبه ولد عبد الله به. That means Abdullah ibn Umar behaved very similar to Umar, and Salim behaved very similar to Abdullah ibn Umar. ممتاز. وقال مالك لم يكن أحد في زمان سالم بن عبد الله أشبه من مضي أو من مضى أو من مضى من الصالحين في الزهد والفضل والعيش منه. الله أكبر. This is beautiful. كلام جميل. قال الأصمعي عن ابن أبي الزناد كان أهل المدينة يكرهون اتخاذ أمهات الأولاد حتى نشأ فيهم القراء السادة على علي ابن الحسين ابن علي ابن أبي طالب والقاسم ابن محمد وسالم ابن عبد الله ففاقوا أهل المدينة علما. ممتاز. So reputation was exceeding all expectations. ممتاز. وقال علي بن الحسن العسقلاني عن ابن المبارك كان فقهاء أهل المدينة 7 فذكره فيهم, and he was mentioned. Salim. ممتاز. This is beautiful. كلام جميل. وهكذا بيذكر المزيد. But here, now we're going to get into some things about أسانيد. قال أحمد بن حنبل وإسحاق بن رهوي أصح أسانيد الأسانيد الزهري عن سالم عن أبيه. Allahu Akbar. So we can go back to our takhrij folder here and write right here أفضل الأسانيد عند أحمد وإسحاق ابن راهوي, and also some people say Ruhawi, سالم عن أبيه. عفوا, الزهري عن سالم عن أبيه. الزهري عن سالم عن أبيه. This is perfect. So now we know that this chain right here is exquisite. It's perfect. Kalam Jamil. We do not have any issue with it whatsoever. But our original sanad has to do with Nafi', not Salim. Salim was in the other chains, right? Okay. So anything that Salim is in is perfect. The sanad itself is good, it's strong. Even Bukhari says it. Look, أصح ما في الباب. And we have here Ahmad ibn Hanbal and Ishaq ibn Rahawayh are saying that is the أصح الأسانيد مطلقا. ممتاز. ممتاز جدا. طيب. What about Nafi' Mawla ibn Umar? Well, let's go back to Taqrib al-Tahdhib and let's try and locate him completely. One moment. نعم عفوا. All right, so we're going to go down and pull out Nafi' بإذن. Of course, حرف النون. Nafi' should be right in the earlier pages of Noon. Here we're in Nafi' already. Mumtaz. So now we have to find who is this Nafi' Mawla ibn Umar. If we look all right here, you'll see Nafi' ibn Asim, Nafi' ibn Abbas, Nafi' ibn Abdullah, أو ibn Kathir. Kalam Jamil. We're going to get a lot of Nafi'. But just to make things يعني, easier, Nafi' is most notably known as being Mawla ibn Umar. And Mawla in Arabic has a lot of يعني, meanings to it. Essentially, back in يعني, the old times before there was like complete governments and police and things like that, Kalam Jamil, there was tribalism. Tribalism, it came with its own system of security, Jamil. So with tribes, when you were to move to an area where a tribe was, you were to seek allegiance with that tribe, and therefore you would be in the protection of their security system, however that security system might be. وعلى هذا كلام جميل صارت الأمور until we had an actual شرطة system. جميل. فهذه يعني maybe the most famous type of يعني ولاية, or not ولاية, but موالاة بين الناس. Also, on top of that was when you took in a slave that normally did not have any Arab connections. By default, they would be in your protection. But Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad, Nafi' Mawla ibn Umar, Nafi' was actually a slave that Abdullah ibn Umar ibn al-Khattab, in one of the battles, Nafi' was taken. What is his father's name has been a matter of great debate. Some people said his name was Hurmuz. Others said his name was Kawis. But at the end of the day, all of that is irrelevant. He's known as Mawla ibn Umar. This means that we're going to always find him attached to Ibn Umar, not his name, which brings up a very important thing. Scholars that have nicknames or are identified by a certain thing will always be classified under that. Al-A'mash. Al-A'mash is technically a bad word, but was always known as Al-A'mash. So if you can't find him, you can go back to Al-Alqab and figure out who he is. Nafi', as you can see here, Abu Abdullah al-Madani, Mawla ibn Umar. And that's it. They're not going to write his name or anything else. Nafi', and we're going to read his full biography in a moment. Nafi' was a major scholar. it is not known of Nafi' to have made any mistakes in his narrations. And that's unique, very unique. Okay, so he's Madani, which we said that's a good thing, right? So let's go ahead and shade that in that odd blue color there. Mawla ibn Umar, all right. Thiqa Thabt, Mumtaz. So we're going to also make it bold. Oh, not blue. What did we do the other one up there so you guys can be able to catch it? We did it in that weird purple. All right, there you go. Min al-thalitha. What does this mean? This means min al-tabaqa al-thalitha. Remember? So we can actually add that in. Al-tabaqa al-thalitha. So as you can see, he's in the same tabaqa as Salim. Kalam Jamil. And what color did we use there? Yeah, it was that weird color right there. مات سنة 17 و100 أو بعد ذلك. Okay. مات سنة 17 و100. So 117 or slightly after. هجريا يعني. تمام. أنعين means the جماعة يعني كل من روى عن كل يعني كتب الستة. كل كتب الستة. كلام جميل واضح بين. There should not be any issues there. Nafi' is thiqa. So this sanad that we have all the way at the top, this sanad is sanaduhu sahih, without any ishkal here. Without any ishkal. We're going to read something else right now about Nafi', but in its basic presentation, this sanad is what? Sahih. Of course, mawqufan, because in that chain right there, it stops at the sahabi. It does not go beyond that. But in other chains, it does have a continuation. Okay, the sanad is sahih. Now, does this mean that the matn of the hadith is sahih? No. The matn of the hadith is different than the sanad of the hadith. However, normally when the sanad is sahih, the matn is sahih. But at times, minor, but at times they might not add up. Kalam Jamil? Mumtaz, I'll be sending this inshallah ta'ala after our class inshallah. If there's any questions about this, feel free to do so. I'm going to pull up Nafi' from Tahdhib al-Tahdhib so we can read any jarh and ta'deel يعني statements and discussions that were stated inshallah. So here's Nafi', Jamil. We want to go to the end of the names. Bismillah. أيوة. وخلق كثير. قال ابن سعد كان ثقة كثير الحديث. وقال البخاري أصح الأسانيد مالك عن نافع عن ابن عمر. وقال بشر ابن عمرو عن مالك كنت إذا سمعت من نافع يحدث عن ابن عمر لا أبالي ألا أسمعه من غيره. That was suffice for him. وقال عبد الله بن عمر لقد من الله تعالى علينا بنافع. Wow, you don't get that a lot, where the actual teacher is praising what? The student. وقال أيضا بعثه عمر ابن عبد العزيز إلى مصر ليعلمهم السنن. Allah, this is not a regular person يا إخوان. وقال حرب بن إسماعيل قلت لأحمد إذا اختلف سالم ونافع في ابن عمر من أحب إليك؟ قال أتقدم عليهما. يعني ما في أحد, there's no, neither are better, they're both basically at the same level. وقال عثمان الدارمي قلت لابن معين نافع عن ابن عمر أحب إليك أو سالم؟ فلم يفضل. يعني يحيى بن معين refused to say which one was better, نافع or سالم. قلت, meaning he's saying, he's telling Yahya ibn Ma'in, basically the classmate of Ahmad ibn Hanbal, if you may. فنافع أو عبد الله بن دينار, Yahya ibn Ma'in said ثقات ولم يفضل, and he did not say one was better than the other because they're all great imams. وقال العجلي مدني ثقة, وقال ابن خراش ثقة النبيل, وقال النسائي ثقة, وقال في موضع آخر أثبت أصحاب نافع مالك, the best student of نافع is مالك, ثم أيوب. كلام جميل, السختيان يعني. فذكر جماعة بعد ذلك, وقال في موضع آخر اختلف سالم ونافع في 3 أحاديث, وسالم أجل على نافع, وحديث الثلاثة أولى بالصواب. قال يحيى بن بكير وآخرون مات سنة كذا. Okay, they're just speaking about when he died. Let's bypass that, we don't need that right now. Ibn Hibban ذكره في الثقات, and Ibn Hibban said, and they differed a lot about his full name, but they never came up to an actual agreement on anything. كلام جميل. Look at this. قال ابن أبي خيثمة قال حدثنا أحمد بن حنبل قال حدثنا ابن عيينة سفيان عن إسماعيل بن أمية قال كنا نريد نافع مولى بن عمر على اللح فيأباه. يعني we would try to see if نافع would make a mistake, and he wouldn't. He would يعني catch and see what is going on before they could try him and test him in anything. Okay, ممتاز. See, look, says وقال أبو زرع نافع عن عثمان مرسل. That means نافع didn't narrate from عثمان ibn Affan. That means if he does, then there's someone missing. وقال أحمد بن حنبل نافع عن عمر منقطع. It would be منقطع, but you'll probably be able to find the chain somewhere else. Just because نافع is not known as being a مدلس, you just have to يعني locate the full chain somewhere. وقال ابن شاهين في الثقات قال أحمد بن صالح البكري كان نافع حافظا ثبتا له شأن وهو أكبر من عكرمة عند أهل المدينة. كلام جميل. As you can see, يعني you're talking about major trustworthy scholars here narrating this information. Every single one of these chains, all of these chains that we have covered right here, they're all in this sense authentic. All of them. تمام. ولا نجد أي شك في ذلك فيكون بذلك الحديث صحيح, whether it came in the مرفوع sense or it came in the موقوف sense, because it's okay. I mean, it's possible where يعني a sahabi will repeat something the Prophet ﷺ said, right, without يعني without attributing it to the Prophet. It could happen. That's normal, especially if he's not in a setting to do so, right? نعم. So that concludes what we were doing with the takhrij, inshallah ta'ala. So let's go ahead and open our books to, let me see, bismillah. So we can continue in our book, bi'idhnillah. Let's see, al-Bayquniyah. Where's my copy? Here we go. Bismillah. It would be good to do a hadith with issues next time. Okay, yeah, definitely. That's why, you know, I mentioned to everyone, yani, let's go ahead and suggest a hadith. But I'll tell you this. How about everyone go and find a problematic narration? And you could even do this. I'll give you an easier option. Go to Al-Mawdu'at by Ibn al-Jawzi. Tamam? And pick out any hadith you want from there. Inshallah ta'ala, we'll go over it. طيب, where did we stop in Bayquniyah? Who can remind me what verse we're at? وكل ما لم يتصل بحالي بسم الله. I know we did the we finished منقطع. ممتاز. نعم خلاص نبدأ إن شاء الله تعالى عند المعضل والمدلس. المعضل والمدلس. The author here says والمعضل الساقط منه اثنان وما أتى مدلسا نوعان. المعضل is like المنقطع. The difference is that the mu'dal is missing two consecutive narrators within the chain. Now, we need to express a few extra details so you can understand. If you have actually, since we have the screen shared, let's run the example here. We'll just go to the bottom so that way you can have it in your notes, inshallah. All right, al-mu'dal. You should be able to see this. So if the hadith will say here, this is what we'll do. We'll just use the same chain that we had here as an example, but let's add a Shafi'i an Malik an Nafi' an Ibn Umar an Umar. Oh no, that'd be too much. عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. Perfect. And what we're going to do is we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 narrators here, right? So no, let's do it this way. No, it's all right. So we'll call, we'll just leave it like that. Let's bring it to the middle. Want to try and present it as best as possible so you can get it. And I was hoping I can number it, but that's all right. It's not a big deal. There we go. You can see it. Very clear and obvious, right? So if I make the hadith الشافعي عن مالك عن نافع عن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, this is called mursal. Why? سقط منه الصحابي. The Sahabi has fallen out of the chain. ممتاز? ممتاز. But what if I did الشافعي عن نافع عن ابن عمر عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم? This is منقطع. Why? لسقوط راو. Does it matter where the narrator has fallen out in the chain? No. Which means all types of disconnections are actually referred to as munqata. However, when we say or when we state munqata, normally we don't mean mursal. And we don't mean mu'dal. What's mu'dal? الشافعي عن ابن عمر عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. This would be called mu'dal. Why? لسقوط راويين أو راويان متتابعان. Two narrators consecutively have fallen out. Here, one anywhere. Here, the Sahabi. كلام جميل. ممتاز. Now, as long as no one's saying حدثنا, it's not that big of an issue. So if Shafi'i is not saying حدثنا, so imagine if that an actually said حدثنا, here we would have to say what? That person would be a liar. But that's not normally how people do that. Now there's another version of, will be like this. الشافعي قال ابن عمر عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. This is called mu'allaq. This is called what? Mu'allaq. Why? لأنه علقه على فلان. In Bukhari, if you open up at the beginning of the different chapters, what does he do? He'll say, قال فلان كذا 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 كذا. This is mu'allaq because he's not giving you a chain that would connect what he's saying, right, back to that individual. Now, the mursal, this first one right here, Imam Abu Hanifa and Imam Malik and Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, they all viewed that this would still be authentic. Why? Because the Sahabi or the Sahaba, we accept from them indefinitely, right? Right, without a doubt. So if he's missing, why would that be a problem? As Shafi'i said, we can't say that. Why a Shafi'i? Because while Nafi' is a great scholar, a lot of times he could take a hadith from other tabi'is. And since we've done research and found almost 7 tabi'in missing in certain chains that were mursal, right? Then, as long as there's a possibility, and I have no certainty, then I cannot agree with that. I cannot utilize this information. Because not mentioning the Sahabi, which would be an 8th person, I have up to 7 people possibly in that chain missing. And some of those, if not all of them, might be weak. Now, this visualization is important for what we're about to speak about, and that is at-tadlis. So we'll keep that up on the screen. Let's make a line and let's write at-tadlis. Here, Imam al-Bayquni says, وَمَا أَتَى مُدَلَّسًا نَوْعَانِ. Okay, what's tadlis? Tadlis would be the person deliberately doing some of these scenarios above to hide something. Okay, now, since most scholars of hadith will look at a chain and know Shafi'i never met Nafi'. I mean, most of us here are Shafi'i, so we probably actually know that already, that Shafi'i did not meet Nafi'. Shafi'i studied with Malik, and it wasn't actually that long, and then Malik died while Shafi'i was still there. So obviously, he didn't meet Nafi', nor did he meet Salim, nor did he meet Ibn Umar. I mean, that's such a given. You kind of get that after years of studying. You just know that. It's a fact, right? Okay. So since people know that, that trick might not fly to scholars of hadith, right? But instead what they'll do is that they'll come and say, and this is just a quick example before we get into these 2 categories that Imam Bayquni pointed out. But they'll come into this. Shafi'i an Abi Abdullah al-Madani. Or just say Abi Abdullah an Nafi' an Ibn Umar. And some might go like this. Shafi'i an Abi Abdullah an Ibn Umar. From the get-go, we don't know who Abi Abdullah is. Jameel. So when you see it, you cannot say right there on the spot, oh, Shafi'i didn't narrate from Abi Abdullah. Why? Because there's about like 15 people that a Shafi'i met that had the kunya of Abu Abdullah. Jameel. Now, would this be considered lying? No. As a matter of fact, even if he removed Abi Abdullah or Abi altogether and said An Abdullah, that's technically not a lie. As a matter of fact, if he took Nafi'a and wrote An Abdullahi, An Ibn Umar, that's still not a lie. Why? Because we're all Abdullah, right? So you could have said An Abdullahi An Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. But of course, a mudallis doesn't want to do anything fishy. He just wants enough ambiguity or hiding to a point where he cannot be exposed. Why is he hiding? For many reasons. There's a weak narrator. He didn't actually get the sanad like that, So he's making it appear shorter. Say Abdullah, remove Nafi' and Malik. That's two narrators. Now you only have one. Now your chain is shorter than it was, right? Okay. So we'll use our same example from up here. And we'll look at these two types of tadlis. Now, these two types that Imam Bayquni has explained to us, these are like the very basic. They're more of like 20 different types. Okay. But we're going to start with the Imam Bayquni and we'll stick to where he's at. Tamam. So the first one he says, Al-awwalu lisqatu lish-shaykhi wa an yanqilu amman fawqahu bi'an wa an. That's like the example I gave you. The first one, al-isqatu lish-shaykh, removing your teacher out of it. So, al-Shafi'i an Nafi'. Now, imagine if Ahmad ibn Hanbal was here. He's in the chain too, right? So he says, عن شافع عفوا I don't know why I wrote Ben but عن نافع عن ابن عمر عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. Come on. Okay, so how many narrators now? Between Ahmad and the Prophet, there'll be a Shafi'i, that's one, Nafi', that's two, Ibn Umar, that's three. That's three narrators. As opposed to what it should have looked like, Ahmad, عن الشافعي, عن Malik, عن Nafi', عن Ibn Umar. So between Ahmad and the Prophet ﷺ, there'd be 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 narrators. Having a shorter chain, if you remember, we spoke about this in verse 14 of the poetry, where he said that وَكُلُّ مَا قَلَّتْ رِجَالُهُ عَلَى وَضِدُّهُ ذَاكَ الَّذِي قَدْ نَزَلَ كَلَامٌ جَمِيلٌ. So ulu, a shorter chain, was always the main concern of scholars of hadith, because if students knew you had a shorter chain while other people in town had their own had a longer chain, guess where the students would be going? Where would the crowds be flocking to? To you, not to the other people. Okay, so this is your first thing. Imam al-Bayquni says bi'an wa an. Okay, and that's to say قال أحمد أن الشافعي. That's what that means. But an is an old way, يعني that an old method or a rare method really that they would use, ever uses an kalam jamil. So that is your first category. Okay, that's your first qism. All right. What's the second qism? He says والثاني لا يسقطه لكن يصف أوصافه بما به لا ينعرف. The second category does not remove the sheikh altogether. No, it names the sheikh differently. Now, we have to be honest here. Many great imams of hadith did this deliberately. And they did it to make people assume that they had a lot of teachers, while in fact, all they had was 3-4 teachers. One of the most notable scholars that used to do this was Al-Khatib al-Baghdadi. In Al-Khatib al-Baghdadi's books, if you look at his teachers, you'd be amazed. This guy had maybe like 1,500 teachers. After research and investigation, it turns out that really altogether, he has like 9, but he keeps on changing the names. So let's use our sanad right here on the screen as an example. Ahmad an al-Shafi'i. So it'd be Ahmad an al-Matlabi. Ahmad an al-Qurashi. Ahmad an al-Makki. Ahmad an Ibn Idris. Ahmad an Muhammad al-Makki. Ahmad an Ibn Idris ابن إدريس القرشي. أحمد عن ابن إدريس المصري. أحمد عن المكي المصري. أحمد عن المكي القرشي. Are we lying here? No. What are all these names? Well, for the person that's not aware, they think that this was different teachers, right? But in reality, this is the same exact person. This is the same person. It's all a Shafi'i. All of it is Imam Muhammad ibn Idris al-Shafi'i. Then why do this? As I said, for the most part, this was done just to make it seem like you traveled a lot and you had many teachers. Okay. This was a matter of pride. People would seek out those scholars that had many teachers, that have covered many variations of these ahadith and have collected all of this ilm. Here's a question. Is it usually done with an intent or just, well, no, it's usually done with intent. And you can tell this because sometimes some of the names are a stretch. Okay. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not haram. I mean, overall, it might be frowned upon. But it happens. Sometimes, in very rare occasions, that it might happen by accident, without any ill intent meant. But this is very rare. Okay, and it's very obvious. It's not calling a Shafi'i al-Misri, since no one calls a Shafi'i al-Misri, but he lived there 4 years, and most madhahib say if you live in a place for 4 years, you can be named after that place. Shafi'i lived for 4 years in Egypt. He went in 199, died 204, so you technically can call him al-Misri. But when I say it's obvious, I mean like saying fi madhab ibn Idris. Well, everyone knows Ibn Idris is a Shafi'i, and if you're saying madhab, then obviously you're speaking about a Shafi'i. Al-Imam al-Qurashi. Okay, out of the 4, there's only one Qurashi, and that's a Shafi'i. Those are obvious, right? But people might do that to express that they have many mashayikh, or sometimes to hide things. Another one that's very famous that used to be hidden was Abu Bakr ibn Abi Dawood. So we know Abu Dawood, Sijistani, the author of, or the, not an author, but the collector of the Sunan, right? We know him. His son, during Abu Dawood's travels, Abu Dawood would take his son, known by everyone as Abu Bakr. Most people don't know his actual name, which his actual name is Abdullah. Okay? Now, when they got back home, Abu Dawood was very strict who he gave a hadith to. As I'm pretty sure a lot of you are aware, the crazy stories, Imam al-A'mash tied dogs in front of his house, so when someone would come and ask for a hadith and he felt they weren't worthy, he'd give them a command to chase the guy. Okay, they were very strict in who they gave knowledge. Yakhwan, knowledge is power. That's why you hear about like ancient mystery schools. It's all about who are you giving ilm to? Are they going to use it correctly? Or are they going to use it to harm and to enslave other people, right? So that's really the main concern with giving ilm to other people. Obviously today the ilm is everywhere, but yet people are dumber. Well, subhanallah, I mean, that's all I can say. But when they got back home, since Abu Dawood was so strict, people would stop his son when he'd be playing in the street or going somewhere and be like, you were with your father, you received these ahadith as well. He did, and he was writing them at a very young age. Why don't you give us a hadith? Abu Dawood found out, and he came out and he said it very bluntly and clearly. Ibni Abdullah Da'if. Some scholars of hadith said that he used his real name so that way when he gets older, it's not a scar for the rest of his life, because no one calls him Abdullah. Everybody calls him Abu Bakr. Which is a possibility. Allahu A'lam. Allah knows best. Bottom line is, what did people do? What did people do with the hadith they have when they wanted to transmit it and they had taken it from Abu Dawud's son? They would say this: Haddathana Abdullah ibn Abi Abdullah as-Sijistani. We were informed by Abdullah, the son of the father of Abdullah as-Sijistani. Now, when you compare the two names, you do not think from first glance that they're the same person, right? Doesn't look like it. I mean, they're both Sijistani, but the first one's called Abu Bakr. And as I said, most people did not know his name as Abdullah. They know him as Abu Bakr ibn Abi Dawud. As a matter of fact, till this very moment, he's known as Abu Bakr ibn Abi Dawud. That's what he's known as till this very moment. So when you look at this name and look at this name, you'd think from the beginning they're not the same person. While in fact, they are indeed the same person. And then the stories go on that Abu Bakr, he continued to do tahdith, delivering a hadith to people, even though his father said no, which caused a big dilemma later on. Do we consider Abu Bakr as thiqa or not thiqa? And then he became a big scholar amongst the Hanabila, and then everyone else that was against him used everything that his dad said, and it became a fiasco, and it wound up where Al-Imam al-Tabari was under house arrest because he didn't want to believe the same things that Abu Bakr wanted to believe in certain hadith, and the drama lives on. But in Tadlis, there's a lot more details, right? There's a lot of trickery. I've mentioned in the class several times people like Al-Walid ibn Muslim, who narrates, right, Haddathana Al-Awza'i. And he's very famous for this, right? But then all of a sudden, you'll see that the teachers of Al-Awza'i start to vanish. And new names are put, or names of people are removed altogether. And Al-Walid doesn't say Haddathana when he does this. Al-Walid, he says An Al-Awza'i. They'd go to him, the same students of Al-Awza'i would say, Ya Walid, when did Al-Awza'i say this? He'd brush them off. Why are you doing this, Ya Walid? And it went beyond Al-Awza'i as the days and as time went on. He went beyond that altogether. Kalam Jameel. Now, when the rule now became what? When we know someone is a mudallis, if they say an or an or min or qala, these are red flags if the person is known as a mudallis. Now, technically, they're not lying. That's why we say tadlis akhu al-kadhib, right? It's like the brother of lying, because they're not lying, they're just twisting it a bit. Because as soon as you're labeled as a liar amongst the muhaddithin, that's it. You're done. No one will touch you again. All of your narrations that you previously said would pretty much be washed away, ripped up, burnt. It's worthless at that point. Kalam Jameel. Here we're going to stop. Inshallah, we'll pick up in our next class from Ash-Shadh wal-Maqloob. نسأل الله سبحانه وتعالى الإتمام والتيسير. And let me know in the Telegram group if you like this share screen method. If you want, I can continue to do so in the following abiyat, since it helps with visualization, inshallah ta'ala. وأقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله تعالى لي ولكم فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.